Hey, welcome back to Great American Movie Review. It's Mikiah here doing another one of these solo reviews. It's been a little while since I've been able to do one of these between sickness and the holidays and starting a new job. Lots of stuff going on, but I'm here now with a review for the first movie that I've seen that is from the year 2024, and that is the new version of Mean Girls. Now, for those who don't know, this is which I mean, I feel like everybody knows that mean about Mean Girls. It's not that old, but it is 20 years old, which is actually pretty surprising given how relevant it's continued to be in the pop cultural sphere. But it was a film in 2004 directed by Mark Waters, written by Tina Fey, based on the book Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Wiseman. And then I think in like 2020, they decided let's make it a musical. And so they turned it into a musical. And now they were like, what if we took this musical that's based on a movie that's based on a book and turned that into another movie based on the musical, based on the movie, based on the book? And so now we're here with Mean Girls, the musical, essentially, although they dropped that from the title as if I don't know, more people would see it if they didn't think it was a musical. Joke's on them because you start the movie and it's instantly a musical. It's not hiding it at all. I don't understand this recent trend in hiding a movie's musical nature in the marketing. But anyway, that honestly is the main appeal here. I think because once again, that movie's not that old. People still watch it regularly. It still has a cultural footprint in today. But that being said, does the movie kind of merit its own existence? And I think it does. I don't like hold the original in this incredibly high esteem. I like it fine. I've seen it a number of times. It's an enjoyable, fun movie. It has a good message at its core. Very much of the 2000s in a way that I think holds up pretty well. And frankly, if you just wanted to go back and watch the original, you'd be totally justified in doing so. Still a solid, fun comedy. And this really kind of feels like a love letter to itself. It might to some feel a little too self-indulgent, and at times I do feel that as well. But I do feel like the movie thrives the most when it's not copying the original, and it's not just like repeating lines, because there are some great lines and stuff, but when you're like putting emphasis on calling out specific things that weren't even that big of things in the movie but have become memes and stuff years later, it feels self-referential to a degree that isn't the best, but I do think that it still manages to find its own path, largely through the musical elements here. I think the music here is actually really good. I talked in Wonka recently. I think the musical elements are incorporated into that film very well, but none of the songs really stuck in my mind. It wasn't anything that was super catchy. There are already songs from this movie that I find myself humming or they get stuck in my head. So yeah, to each their own. It's very much in that modern musical sensibility, which it should be. It's set in present day, it's fitting in with that kind of slightly poppier angle to the musical, but there's still like some real musical theater elements here too. It's not just like pop songs, but I think they do a good job of incorporating that here. I saw The Color Purple and I didn't do a review for it. The new version, once again, the new musical version that doesn't advertise itself as a musical. But yeah, I didn't do a review for that one because I had just watched the original, and the original Spielberg film from '84 really was impactful to me. Like I was taken in by like just how good that film is. I understand the critiques that that film has, but going into this new version, it felt just like a hollowed out shell of that one with musical numbers inserted into it, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I didn't want to talk too negatively because I do feel like there's a lot of good in there, but I didn't have a good time watching it. And I was really afraid that this Mean Girls movie would be kind of the same, but I feel like the severity difference of the subject matter really does make a difference here, because this one can just be light and fun. And if it feels like it's a little bit hollower than the original, then that's fine because the original was always a silly comedy. It wasn't this heavy drama. So yeah, I think they do a good job incorporating those elements into the film, and it doesn't take away from the other stuff going on. I'm not saying that this really surpasses the original in any real way, but I don't think it's trying to either. I think, like I said, it's trying to be like a supplement to it. It's trying to be a love letter to it in a way, with still the involvement of Tina Fey, who once again is on as writer here. This time, though, it's not Mark Waters directing. It's a directing team that this is actually their first feature, of Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr. So for our first feature, this is honestly a pretty promising place to start if this is like your first feature film. That's pretty cool. And I wish them good luck and good fortune in their future endeavors. But this is kind of a cool place to start for them. But yeah, one of the biggest things about the original is that cast, led by Lindsay Lohan right when she was on top of the world in terms of these kind of teen movies. And it also had, obviously, Rachel McAdams as Regina George, the iconic villainous leader of the Plastics, as well as it had Lizzie Kaplan and Amanda Seyfried, just a lot of people in that original filling out these iconic roles. So it's kind of a hard task already. It's an uphill battle when you're trying to, recast that aspect of the film, because you're always going to have that attachment to those originals if you have that fondness for that first film. But I think that all the people are really game here, and Angourie Rice, or Andrew, I never know how to say her name. Either way, she's been great over the years. The Nice Guys is what really caught my attention. She's in the Spider-Man movies, and here she gets to fill the Lindsay Lohan role of Katie Heron. But the standouts of the cast to me here are, I think, Renee Rapp, who I'm not familiar with. I know she played Regina George. She might have originated the role on Broadway. So it's cool to see that transference, because sometimes when that happens, it's like way too late and the people have aged out of it. Here, I think she's still young enough to pull it off. As well as you have Ali Cravalho, who is the voice of Moana most famously as Janice. And they both have very different vocal styles, but they have just this screen presence, both of them, that is really compelling. And I liked watching those two on screen a lot. Also, Jacquel Spivey is Damien here. He's really great too. I liked his kind of version of that character here. And then filling out the Plastics, you have Bebe Wood playing Gretchen Wieners. And she does a good job. She gets, I think, a little bit sidelined here. But Avantika, who doesn't necessarily get more of a spotlight here, but she does steal the spotlight frequently. She just has some wonderfully moronic lines, just playing that Amanda Seyfried character from the original. Just really stupid things come out of her mouth, and it's pretty much always funny. So I really enjoyed her presence in the film too. The one real downgrade I will say is probably the Aaron Samuels character, which is no fault of the actor. Christopher Briney does a fine job, but in a musical, he's not really featured as heavily, it doesn't feel, because he doesn't have any songs. So he's in the movie probably as much as he was in the original, but because everybody's singing and he's not singing, he feels somewhat a little bit more background here than he did then. But it's also cool to see a couple of returning people like Tina Fey and Tim Meadows stepping into these roles again, the same characters that they played in the original. Once again, kind of leaning more into that love letter idea more so than it really truly being its own thing entirely. So that might rub somebody the wrong way. Once again, it's really going to be up to taste here, but I think if you love that original and you go into this one with an open mind, I think you'll just have fun with it. I'm not saying it's going to replace the original or anything, but it's a nice different version of it, but it keeps all of the same elements. There are some subtle changes here or there, or a little bit more obvious ones, but none of them are major. It's just some tweaks to lines or just slight differences. But like I said, where this movie really stands on its own is in those musical aspects that I think it does do very well. And when it does differ from the original, like just having a different line come at the spot where that original line comes and it still hits and it's still funny. You're not like, ooh, they're just kind of repeating the same line from the first. It feels different enough still to stand on its own. But I had a good time with it. I don't think that this is like a fantastic film, but you know what? For a January film, that's usually the dumping ground for the year. We get a bunch of not very good new releases, and then whatever independent films that are up for award season stuff that haven't fully gone wide. I'm still waiting on a couple of those here, like Poor Things and American Fiction. So hopefully I get those soon, because I'd love to be able to make my best of the year list, but I don't feel like I can until I see a couple more films. But anyway, that'll do it for this little review for Mean Girls, the musical, as I'm just going to call it, because that's what it is. So yeah, if you have any thoughts on the movie, if you saw it, you liked it, if you have any thoughts on this review, please leave a comment. I love to engage with you guys, as long as I feel it's appropriate to engage with. But yeah, that'll do it for me. First review up for 2024, and we'll see you at the movies.